She was a black woman, just trying to get through her shift. 3 years building her career at one of Seoul's most expensive restaurants. And in one night, it meant almost nothing. Because he came back. Marcus walked through that door as if he owned every place she'd ever been. As if the 6 weeks of silence, the blocked number, the new route home, as if none of it had happened. As if she hadn't had a say in any of it. And when the restaurant emptied, when the last couple put on their coats and the manager went to the back, his hand found her throat. It wasn't strong enough. It wasn't violent enough to make anyone feel compelled to pull away. Just enough to remind her of everything she'd been trying to forget. She could feel his grip. She could hear his voice, low and almost gentle, as it always was before it became something completely different. And the receptionist near the door looked away, and the dining room fell silent. But Table 9 hadn't been vacated, and the Korean man sitting there, the one no one asked questions about, the one with dragon tattoos climbing up his neck and a calmness so complete it knew no bounds, was watching. He didn't stand up. He didn't shout. He simply placed something cold and golden on the edge of that table and said 2 words. What happened next not only saved her that night, it changed everything that came after. But what she discovered about the reason for his intervention, that's the part of this story that will stay with you long after it's over. Before we begin the story, comment here where you're watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The restaurant had a rule that nobody ever spoke out loud, but everyone understood the moment they walked through the door. You did not make a scene at Obsidian. The lighting was amber and low, the kind that costs money to get right. The marble was dark, the glasses were crystal, and the silence between tables was something the staff protected like a 5th wall. Naomi Edse had learned that silence in her first week. She had learned to move inside it like water, graceful, invisible, useful. 3 years of carrying bottles that cost more than her monthly rent had taught her that the people who came to Obsidian did not come to be seen. They came to exist in a space where no one would bother them. She was good at not bothering people. She was good at a great many things that required her to make herself small. That Friday evening, she had arrived early. She had pressed her blouse twice. She had lined her lips carefully in the bathroom mirror, wine dark and precise, and told herself what she always told herself before a long shift, that she was fine. That 6 weeks was long enough, that blocked numbers stayed blocked, and that people like Marcus Webb eventually found someone else to consume. She had almost believed it by the time the first guests arrived. Table 9 was reserved, as always, for the man the staff referred to only as Mr. Jang. Nobody knew his full name. Nobody asked. He arrived at 8:15, as he always did, alone, and sat with the particular stillness of a man who had never once in his life needed to fill a silence. His suit was black. His shirt was black. At the collar, where the fabric fell open at 2 buttons, the ink of a dragon's tail curled upward toward his jaw. Dark lines against skin, patient and permanent. Naomi brought the Yamazaki without being asked. 2 ice stones, no conversation. He did not say thank you. He never did. She had stopped expecting it. She was restocking the wine display near the back bar when she saw Marcus in the mirror behind the bottles. He was sitting at the bar counter, 15 feet away, his black cap tilted at the angle she had once found attractive and now recognized as a warning. He was watching her reflection, smiling. Her hands did not shake. She had trained them not to. For 40 minutes, she worked. She breathed. She carried bottles and exchanged pleasantries with departing guests, and told herself she would ask Sung, the floor manager to have him removed. She told herself this 4 times. She did not do it once. By 10 o'clock, the restaurant was nearly empty. The hostess was counting menus near the entrance. The last couple at table 3 was pulling on their coats. Sung had stepped into the back. Marcus stood up. She did not hear him cross the floor. She only felt it. The shift in the air pressure behind her. The particular quality of someone standing too close. The smell of his cologne that she had once associated with safety and now made her stomach hollow. His hand closed around her arm first, turning her. She opened her mouth. His other hand rose to her throat. Not a grip, not yet. A placement, deliberate, practiced. The kind of pressure that says, I could, without yet saying, I will. His voice, when it came, was quiet and almost gentle, the way it always was at the beginning before it became something else entirely. We're going to talk, he said. You're going to stop pretending I don't exist. And you're going to remember. She stopped hearing the words. She had heard them before, in different arrangements. She knew where they led. What she did not know, what she could not have anticipated in that moment, with his hand at her throat and her back against the wine display, and the restaurant emptying itself around her like the world was politely looking away, was that table 9 had not yet cleared. And the man at table 9 was watching. Jang Hyun-Soo had not moved. That was the thing about him that the people who feared him most could never quite articulate when they tried to explain it afterward. It was never the movement that frightened them. It was the absolute architectural stillness that came before it. The way he could sit inside a moment and let it fully arrive before he decided what it would become. He had seen the man enter at 8:52. He had noted the cap, the chain, the particular way the man's eyes had found the woman behind the bar, and stayed there, with the fixed, proprietary quality of someone who believed that looking long enough at something made it yours. Hyun-Soo had spent enough years reading rooms to know the difference between a man who wanted something and a man who believed he was owed it. This one believed he was owed. He had watched her notice, had watched her not react, and that, more than anything, had told him what he needed to know. A woman who had never been afraid of someone would have turned around, would have waved, would have walked over or walked away with the easy indifference of someone who held the power in the equation. She had done none of those things. She had made herself very, very still, the way small animals do when a larger one enters the field. He recognized that stillness. He had seen it once before, in a girl who wore it for 2 years before it killed her. His sister had been 23. Her boyfriend had been charming at family dinners, and something else entirely behind closed doors. And Hyun-Soo, who controlled 4 districts of Seoul, who had men who would end a problem with a single phone call, had not seen it until it was too late to be anything but the person who identified her at the hospital. He lifted his glass. He drank. He waited. When the hand went to the woman's throat, he set the glass down. The motion was unhurried. He placed it precisely at the center of the coaster, the same way he did everything, with the calm of a man who understood that speed was for people who were uncertain. He was not uncertain. His right hand moved beneath the table with the practiced ease of long habit, finding the weight that was always there, cold and familiar and exact. The gold caught the amber light for just a moment as his hand settled. He did not stand. Standing would have been theater, and he had no interest in theater. He spoke at a volume calibrated for the distance between them, loud enough to arrive, quiet enough that it carried no heat. Heat was wasted energy. Let go. 2 words, The English was flawless and utterly without accent, which somehow made it worse. There was no distance in it, no foreignness that might allow the man to dismiss it as confusion or misunderstanding. It landed clean. Marcus Webb turned slowly. Later, if he had been the kind of man capable of honest reflection, he might have admitted that he had expected many things when he turned around. A concerned citizen? A drunk? Someone's boyfriend playing hero? He had handled all of those before. He had a way of making his size felt, a way of letting his expression communicate that the cost of continuing this conversation would be higher than whoever was starting it wanted to pay. What he had not expected was a man who looked back at him with no expression at all. Not anger, not righteousness, not the bright, brittle courage of someone doing something that frightened them. Nothing. The kind of nothing that is not emptiness, but its opposite. A fullness so complete it had no room left for anything as small as what Marcus Webb thought of it. And then Marcus's eyes dropped. Just slightly. Just enough to register the line of gold resting at the table's edge. Half shadow, half light. The silencer's cylindrical geometry unmistakable to anyone who had ever been in a room where one was present. The hand at Naomi's throat did not release immediately. That half-second. The half-second in which Marcus Webb's pride fought his survival instinct and lost, stretched out like something pulled too tight. Naomi felt it in the pressure, the slight, involuntary increase before the fingers opened. The way a man who has never backed down from anything in his life has to pass through something on the way to doing it for the first time. Then she was breathing. Her hand went to her own throat reflexively, fingers pressing where his had been. And she took one step back, then another, until her shoulders met the wine rack behind her. Her eyes moved between the two men with the rapid, calculating quality of someone running every possible version of the next 30 seconds. Marcus stood very still. "You don't know what you're getting into," he said. His voice had lost something. He was working to hide that it had. Hyun-Soo looked at him for a long moment, the way a man looks at a door he has already decided to close. "You're still here," he said. That was all. Marcus Webb left. Not quickly, he was too proud for quickly. But he left, and the door settled shut behind him with the soft, expensive click of a place that did not permit scenes. And the silence of Obsidian returned as though it had never been broken. Naomi stood very still, her hand still at her throat, her dark eyes fixed on the man at table 9. He had already looked away. He lifted his glass. He finished the last of the Yamazaki. He set it down precisely at the center of the coaster, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the same tone it always did when she brought the check. Neither warm nor cold, simply matter of fact, as though the last 4 minutes had been an interruption of no particular consequence. "You can bring me the bill now." Her hands were steady when she printed the bill. She did not know how. She stood at the register with the receipt printing slowly in the quiet machine beside her, and watched her own fingers and thought, distantly, with a strange clarity that follows something that has not yet fully arrived in the body. They are not shaking. She found this remarkable. She found this almost offensive. Her throat still carried the ghost of his grip, a warmth that was not warmth, and her pulse was doing something complicated behind her ears. And yet her hands were perfectly, uselessly stunning. She carried the billfold to table 9. Hyun-Soo did not look up immediately. He was doing the thing he always did at the end of the evening, straightening the items on the table with small, precise adjustments. The glass moved a centimeter, the coaster aligned, the order of things restored. She had noticed this habit months ago and filed it under things I do not ask about. Now, watching it, she thought she understood it differently. It was not fastidiousness. It was control, the maintenance of it, the daily, deliberate practice of keeping every small thing exactly where it was supposed to be. He opened the billfold, signed without looking at the total, placed the envelope beside it, the one that always contained the cash, the one she had learned not to open until he was gone because the amount made her uncomfortable in ways she couldn't fully articulate. This time, something else was in the envelope. She felt the difference in the weight before she saw it. A small card, cream-colored, the kind of stock that costs more than it looks like it does. No name on it, no title, only a number, handwritten in ink so precise it looked almost typeset. And beneath it, 3 characters in Hanja that she did not recognize. She looked up. He was putting on his jacket, the motion unhurried, each button a deliberate decision. "What does it say?" she asked. She had not planned to ask. The question arrived before she could decide whether to let it. He paused, looked at her for the first time that evening with something that was not quite direct. More the way a man looks at a thing he has already considered from every angle and simply arrived at. "If you need to, call." He left before she could respond. She stood at table 9 for a long moment after the door closed, the envelope in one hand, the billfold in the other, the card between her fingers, like something that had not yet decided what it was. Around her, the restaurant exhaled. The hostess began shutting down the entrance display. Someone in the kitchen dropped something metallic, and the ordinary sounds of a place returning to itself filled the amber-lit room. Naomi put the card in her clutch. She told herself she would not use it. She did not use it the first week. The first week, she changed her route home. She took the longer subway line that added 20 minutes, the one that required 2 transfers and kept her in lit, crowded spaces until she reached her building. She double-locked the door. She slept badly and woke at small sounds and told herself each morning that this was temporary, that Marcus had been embarrassed in front of someone he couldn't read or threaten, and that embarrassment, in her experience, made men like him retreat, at least for a while. She almost believed it. The second week, she found herself looking at the card twice. Once on a Tuesday, when she came home to find the mat outside her apartment door slightly displaced, moved, she told herself, by the building cleaner, by a neighbor, by wind from the hallway window that was always left cracked. She stood in her doorway for 4 minutes before going inside. She looked at the card. She put it back. Once on a Thursday, when she was leaving the restaurant late, and the street outside held a shape in a dark jacket that may or may not have been him, that walked away before she could be certain, that left her standing on the pavement with her clutch held against her chest and her heart doing something loud and irrational until a taxi passed and the light changed and the street was just a street again. She looked at the card in the cab home. She put it back. The third week arrived on a Wednesday night at 2:14 in the morning. She knew the time because she had been awake. She was often awake at that hour now, her sleep having rearranged itself around a low, persistent alertness that she recognized from before, from the years she had spent inside the relationship, when her nervous system had learned to monitor silence the way a sailor monitors weather. The intercom buzzed. Once, then again, then a third time, long and deliberate, the kind of buzz that is not an accident and not urgency, the kind that is a statement. I am here. I know you are there. I am reminding you of both. She did not answer. The intercom went quiet. Then her phone lit up, a number she didn't recognize, which meant a number she recognized very well. The message was 4 words. I can wait longer. She sat on the edge of her bed in the dark of her apartment, in the city that was supposed to be far enough away from everything that had hurt her, and she held her phone in both hands and felt the whole architecture of the last 6 weeks. The new route, the double lock, the displaced mat, the shape in the dark jacket, arrange itself into a single, simple truth she had been refusing to name. He was not retreating. He was pacing. Her clutch was on the chair beside the bed. She reached into it without turning on the light. The card was where it always was, between her transit card and the folded receipt from a dinner 2 weeks ago that she hadn't thrown away for reasons she hadn't examined. Her thumb found the number. She stared at it for a long time. Then she pressed call. It rang twice. "Address," said the voice on the other end. No greeting. No question of who it was or why she was calling at 2:14 in the morning. Just the one word, calm and immediate, as though he had been waiting for it. She told him, "Stay inside," he said. And then the line went quiet. She sat on the edge of her bed and waited, her hands folded in her lap, and for the first time in 3 weeks, they were shaking. 22 minutes. That was how long it took. She knew because she watched the clock on her phone with the fixed, unblinking attention of someone who needed numbers to hold on to. 2:14 becoming 2:19, becoming 2:31, becoming 2:36. Each minute a small, countable thing in a night that had stopped feeling countable. At 2:36, her phone lit up. This same number. Look out your window, street level. She crossed the apartment in the dark, not turning on lights, an instinct she couldn't have explained. The same instinct that had kept her quiet and small for years, and that she was beginning to understand had not always been weakness. Sometimes it had simply been survival wearing the wrong name. She moved the curtain 1 inch. 2 men stood on the pavement below. Black suits, hands at their sides, facing opposite directions, with the relaxed, total alertness of people for whom vigilance was not an effort, but a resting state. They were not looking up at her window. They were not looking at anything in particular. They were simply there. A fact inserted into the street, permanent and without negotiation. Of Marcus Webb, there was nothing. Not the shape in a dark jacket, not a car idling at the curb, not the particular quality of a space that holds a person who does not want to be seen. The street was a street, and the 2 men were in it, and that was all. She let the curtain fall. She stood in the dark of her apartment and felt something move through her chest that she could not immediately name. Not relief, exactly, because relief implied the danger was gone, and she understood enough now to know that things did not resolve that cleanly. Not gratitude, though that was part of it. Something older and more complicated, the particular sensation of a woman who has spent years managing her own fear, alone, in the small hours, and has been met, without request, without transaction, without the cost that help had always previously carried, by something that simply showed up. She did not sleep well that night, but she slept. In the morning, the 2 men were gone. She went to work. She took her usual route, not the long one, the direct one, the one she had abandoned 3 weeks ago, and she noticed, with a detachment that felt new, that her body had stopped bracing. The low hum of alertness that had lived behind her sternum for weeks was quieter. Not gone. She was not naive enough to believe in gone. But quieter, the way a sound becomes manageable when you understand its source. She did not hear from Hyun-Soo. She did not hear about Marcus. She told herself she would not ask, and found, to her own mild surprise, that this was not avoidance. It was a genuine decision. Some questions, she was learning, were not cowardice to leave unasked. Some questions were simply ones whose answers would cost more than the knowing was worth. And a woman who had spent years paying costs that were never hers to carry could be forgiven for finally, carefully, choosing what she let in. The cards stayed in her clutch. 3 weeks later, on a Thursday, Table 9 was reserved. She had half expected it not to be, had prepared herself, in the quiet, practical way she prepared herself for most things now, for the possibility that what had happened between them had made the restaurant impossible for him, that she would arrive one week to find the reservation canceled, and that would be the end of a chapter she had never quite understood the beginning of. But the reservation was there, 8:15 as always. One guest. He arrived at 8:17, 2 minutes late, which was the first variation she had ever observed, and sat down with the same stillness, the same black suit, the same unhurried arrangement of himself in the space. The dragon's tail curled at his collar. The Audemars caught the amber light. She brought the Yamazaki without being asked. 2 ice stones. She set it down. She straightened. She was about to turn away, the motion already beginning, the professional retreat she had performed at this table dozens of times. When he spoke, "You called." It was not a question. It was not, she realized, even really directed at her, or not only at her. It had the quality of a thing said aloud that had previously only been thought, the way people sometimes speak at the end of a long internal argument that has finally settled. She paused. "You answered," she said. He looked at her then, directly, the way he had looked at her only once before, in the restaurant after Marcus had gone, with that quality of complete prior consideration, as though she were a problem he had already solved and was now simply verifying the solution of. Something moved behind his eyes, brief and specific, and then gone, the way light shifts when a cloud passes over it, present long enough to be real, gone too quickly to be examined. "My sister," he said, "did not call." 3 words carrying the weight of something that had no clean shape. Not confession, not explanation, not the bid for sympathy that she might have expected from another kind of man. Just a fact, placed on the table between them with the same precision he used for everything. Offered not to be responded to, but simply to exist, to be the context for everything that had come before it. Naomi stood at the edge of Table 9 and felt the full geometry of it arrive. The man who controlled 4 districts of Seoul, who sat alone every Thursday in a restaurant that cost more than most people's rent, who had looked across a room and seen something that everyone else in that room had chosen not to see, and had made a single, quiet decision that had cost him nothing and had changed the entire architecture of her next 6 weeks, who had lost someone he could not save, and had spent every year since then living inside that fact, who had, one Friday evening, been given a moment that his sister's story had never offered him, and had not wasted it. She did not say she was sorry. P was not, she understood instinctively, a man who wanted that. She did not say thank you. She had said that in the only language it had meant something, which was the call at 2:14 in the morning, the address given, the trust extended to someone she had no rational reason to trust, and had trusted anyway, because some decisions live below the level of reason entirely. She said the only thing that felt true and proportionate and equal to the moment. She would have called, Naomi said quietly, if she had known she could. The silence that followed was the good kind, the kind that is not empty but full, that does not need to be filled because it is already holding something. Hyun-Soo looked at his glass. His jaw moved slightly, the smallest possible acknowledgement of a thing received. He lifted the Yamazaki, drank, set it down precisely at the center of the coaster. "The wine list," he said after a moment. "The burgundy section. You have 3 gaps in the 2018 vintage." She almost smiled. "I'll have them filled by next Thursday," she said. She turned and walked back toward the bar, her clutch at her side, her stride even and unhurried, and the restaurant held them both in its amber light. The woman who had learned to make herself small and was slowly, carefully unlearning it, and the man who had carried a silence for years and had finally, in the space of a single evening, put something down. Outside, Gangnam moved in its usual way, bright and loud and indifferent, the city continuing its business with no knowledge of what had shifted inside one quiet room. Some things, the most important ones, happen in exactly that kind of silence, and the world outside never knows. If this story moved something in you, take just a moment and reflect. Have you ever been in a room where everyone saw what was happening to you and chose to look away? And have you ever been saved, not by someone who owed you anything, not by someone who asked for anything in return, but simply by someone who had lost someone they loved to silence and refused to let that silence win again? And if you have ever been the one at table 9, the one who saw and had to decide whether to act, what did you do? Tell us your story in the comments. We read every single one. And if you believe in stories about protection, redemption, and the quiet courage it takes to finally let yourself be saved, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.